I used to define myself by my hobbies, my tasks. Perhaps for you, it was just one thing. And then all of a sudden, when you no longer have that thing anymore, you've got to question yourself, who am I? Who am I moving forward? And that's the topic that I've got for you today. Moving into your 40s and 50s is like a new chapter. And with that new chapter comes some missing pages. And you may have felt a label in the past. You may have labelled yourself. You might have been the party person. You might have been the gym goer. You might have been the workaholic. And suddenly you feel like those labels, they do define you. But as we get older and as we move through those different chapters, sometimes you have to shed them. And at the end of that, you're left wondering, so who am I? Who am I now? So let me give you a conversation piece on that topic, because ultimately what we're discussing today is the identity crisis and how we navigate moving forward from it. Thanks for joining me. I'm John. Welcome to my channel. I'll try not to go off on a little tangent here, but let me explain. In the very, very early 90s, I was discovering music, and we had just got Sky TV fitted at home, and we had MTV, and I was obsessed by the music channel. It really was a period in my life that brought around a lot of change for me as a person. I fell in love with rock music, metal music. I've always been very eclectic in my taste of music, but this time this was like a deep love, and it was for the band Metallica. And so in 1992 I saw my first ever Metallica gig, and to this day I've now seen the band 63 times. Yes, really 63 times. But I grew so fond of the band that I was collecting lots of Metallica memorabilia. And this went on for years, like easily close to 20 years. But I reached a point when I was incredibly lucky to win a competition to meet the band. And that changed everything for me. And the reason for that was that on the day of standing in a room, in a stadium, waiting to shake hands with a band that I'd followed for all these years, the moment finally came around and I met my idols. And they tell you don't meet your heroes, but on this occasion I can say it was truly amazing. I just had the best time. They were super cool, the meet went well, but the second I shook hands with them, I felt like I had completed my mission. Does that make sense? I had gone from being this incredibly devout fan, collecting everything that I possibly could, and suddenly all of the memorabilia, all of the items just felt like it was no longer needed, like I just didn't need it anymore. And so following that opportunity to meet the band, I decided to sell my collection. And when I say collection, it looked like this. It was rather large. At one point I held the title of biggest Metallica collector in Scotland. I appreciate that's maybe considered a small audience, but amongst many other collectors, I would exchange items. So I took the decision, a big leap, to no longer have those items. And suddenly I felt like my identity had changed. Friends and family that knew me suddenly understood that I had just stepped away from this after all these years. And I felt like I was moving into a new era. Now the second opportunity I've already mentioned in a video, but that was giving up alcohol. People that I had been used to going drinking with, going to the pub with, going out after work with, suddenly that changed. That also felt like a big loss of identity. You may lose some friends over that process, people that kind of knew you for being a particular way, and as I've mentioned in other videos, I've always enjoyed a party, I've always enjoyed a good night out, and then suddenly when you're not drinking, that kind of changes. So that was like another situation where it was like changing the armour. The armour no longer fitted me, And suddenly I found myself with this almost like questioning my own persona. Who was I? Was I still the same person without the alcohol? And that's okay, that's normal. And this is the part that's not really understood from that process, the fear aspect of it. Because the truth is, the thing that we fear losing is not necessarily the thing. The thing that we fear losing is actually the community that's attached to it, right? Everything that encompasses that thing. So if you're training for a marathon and you do a lot of running, you're out with a group, you're maybe speaking to people online, planning your training programs, and suddenly when you decide, well, I've got a dodgy knee or I fancy trying something new, that community goes along with it, and that's the part that needs really understood. But here's what I've learned from all of that. Your identity isn't tied to just one thing. Your identity is renewed over and over and over again as you go through each stage of your life. When I sold those Metallica records, I just felt like I'd accomplished what I wanted to do and it was time to move on. And with alcohol, it was the same process, only I was older, more mature to be able to handle it. I was in my 40s at this point. But remember, you're not tied to that thing. You're renewing over and over and over again. And don't think about it like, what am I losing? Think about it like, what space have I just cleared and what can I now do with that time that I've got available? And the reason I'm talking about this today is that I face this similar challenge right now. As I mentioned in a previous video, I'm considering the exit of the UK, going and travelling. Now, I've saved up a little bit of money. I'm going through my redundancy process right now, but I'm also looking around my house and I'm looking at items that I've accrued over the years. And here's what makes me really think about this. Going back to my dad's house and clearing out his items, his possessions, it really does give you that understanding of what's important in life. It's true what they say, right? You can't take it with you. And so in dealing with my dad's house, it's made me question myself. I've always been a record collector. I like concert posters. Anytime I go to a concert, I've always tried to collect a t-shirt. It's kind of, again, become part of my identity. People know that I do it, and I've talked about it online. But now I'm just wondering, it's just all stuff. And so the question that's in my head is, if I suddenly decide to sell it all, who am I at the end of it all? What do I become? Which version of John am I at that point? And I'll tell you what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about being the 2025 light, agile, happy person that I think I want to be and I want to achieve. Now, as I say all of that, that's what makes me very conflicted. That armour suddenly feels like it doesn't fit anymore. However, I'm also debating, is this grief? What I've read about online is that you should never make any sweeping big decisions in the first 12 months after you've experienced grief. Now, my father passed away last May, so I've not done 12 months, and here I am, making videos on YouTube, talking to you guys, thinking about changing my life, thinking about exiting the UK, thinking about my career prospects, and thinking about whether I sell items that have kind of defined me over the last years. Oh, wow. Not an easy process to go through. And as I think I mentioned in another video, I am an overthinker. I process a lot. So I'm asking myself these questions every night. Do you need these things? Does it open a doorway to a new life? Is it just weighing you down? Or is this just a rash decision in the middle of grief? So here's a question for you. Have you ever felt like you've lost your identity? Something that you changed over the past years that suddenly made you feel like you were in a different place in life? And if you have, let me know down in the comments. Tell me about your story. I'd love to hear it. Hopefully me sharing this with you has been helpful. Thanks as always. New content every Tuesday and Thursday. I appreciate you. Look after yourself. You can come out for peace and quiet in the woods and all you can hear is two dogs arguing in the background, yapping away. There's no such thing as peace and quiet.